So why don't you tell me about? Actually, let's start with something really simple. Like, how did you get discovered for the show?
I was the way I got discovered by Lorne Michaels for Saturday Night Live is I was doing stand up, and so I knew Sandler and Spade from stand up, and then they told their boss Lorne about me, and he kind of takes people's words for stuff. So then he called me, said talk to me and stuff, and I said, yeah, man, I'd like to do that job.
And what was it like? Did you? Were you sort of? I mean, obviously, it's financially it was great. It's a good platform, but did you kind of buy? Like, were you into the myth of it? Like, did you love it when you were younger?
Yes, I grew up on it because I think I was 13 when the first show was on. And I remember seeing the first show because I think George Carlin was the host. So I was, and it was like the only two new things I remember when I was young was Letterman and Saturday Night Live. That was different than all the rest of TV. Was all sort of old for old people, kind of corny. And so yeah, I wasn't, but I was just wanted to do stand up. It wasn't like I was aiming towards Saturday Night Live. And even when Lorne like called me, he said like, you got to do write two sketches, do two characters and two impressions. And then I said, I can't do any of that, you know. So I think he just liked me that I was stupid, and I was from Canada. And I talked to him about being in Canada. I remember he had a show in Canada when I was a kid. The Hart and Lorne, Hart Pomerantz, and he were a comedy team that did a show when I was a little boy, and I remember that because it was sort of like the precursor to Saturday Night Live. It was sort of super cool compared to Wayne and Schuster. So he liked that I remember that he liked that I liked that, and then I think he just got a kick out of the fact that I knew if I did anything in terms of trying to do a character or I would be dead. So I knew my best hope was just to say I couldn't.
So you didn't do anything for like what did you do for your audition?
Nothing. I didn't do an audition.
And so can you describe like what was your first day like on the show? Do you remember your first day?
My first day on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, working, not the first show, but the first day that you were.
The first day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I showed up, this happens a lot at Saturday Night Live. I showed up the first day and no one was there, and I just sat on a couch. Yeah.
What time did you show up?
Well, like 8 in the morning or something. I thought like that's when jobs started. I didn't know. So then no one was there forever, like, and finally people started like shambling in at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and I was already finishing my day, and that's what I remember about the first day, just being all alone. But it's cool because I just went through everything, rifled through people's stuff and looked at old tapes and went in Lorne's office and had a shower.
There was a shower there. So.
Yeah, Lorne has a shower in his office. I think only he and I have ever used it.
So what was the first sketch that you ever got on, or what was the first written material that you ever got on the show?
I wrote a sketch for the first show because Burt Reynolds had just was on Larry King Live and was kind of famous at the time because he was in a contentious divorce with Lonnie Anderson, and he was wearing this crazy purple suit on Larry King Live, and he announced, I will, Lonnie Anderson is lying, and I will get her on this show with you, Larry, and we'll both take truth serum. And I was like, truth serum? What? Is that even a real thing? So it was so funny. And then so I wrote a sketch where they both drank like from beakers of truth serum, and Lorne did not care for it. It opened the show, It was like a big hit at the table. What's his name did Burt Reynolds? Phil Hartman.
Oh, wow.
It was Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks. And it just... the next week, Lorne like pointed to it as the example of what we should not be doing on the show. He said it was just the he calls things Carol Burnettish, which is the ultimate insult. He said it was just the most Carol Burnettish type of sketch. But I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know. And he let me do it. It got all the way to the air. He chose it, and he put it on first. Not my fault.
Do you think, like, it's weird? I think people have a weird sense of what... Because it's like he's such a personality. I think people have a weird sense of, like, how much control he has. At the time when you were working there, like, what... Because it's like he didn't like that sketch, and yet it still was first. Like, how much control did he actually have in terms of the actual shaping of the show?
Absolute control. He had absolute control over everything the entire time I was there, and the entire time I ever remember him, except for one thing. I think in the history of the show, he didn't have control over when I did Weekend Update. That's the only thing that Lorne didn't have any control over.
And did it, like... but at the same time, it's like it seems like the way that the show's worked, or what has made it work at different times, is that he's allowed different kinds of comedy to be on the show. So it's not like it's just going with his own taste, I guess, right? Like,
he's amazing that way, yeah. Like he's told me, I don't get that guy, but and he allows comedy that he even doesn't like to be on the show. And I remember being mad at him, going, "Come on, Lorne, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why isn't I dancing and singing and shit? It's supposed to be, this is a comedy show." And then he's told me, and he goes, "No, it's not a comedy show. This is a variety show." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know." I thought it was a comedy show. But he said, "I think if you could sing or dance, you'd think differently." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess he's right."
The show itself started with it started at its beginnings were that it was doing something very different on TV. Did you feel a sense of like it had lost interest in pushing boundaries or something at the time you were there? Like,
at the time, yes, I because I would always write sketches that would be rejected out of hand, and I would go, "Why? Controversial." And I was like, "Well, I thought that's what we did. I thought that's what Saturday Night Live was, But I was kind of living in the past. But then when we got Update, I went a little crazy. Because I had the freedom, and I engineered it all so that I got Downey, because I knew if I had Downey, I'd have a lot of power behind me.
But then you emailed me and said I should ask you about Rodney Dangerfield when he was on the show. You had some experience with him. Can you tell me that story?
Rodney came on the show to do Update. Like sometimes Lorne would just go, "Oh, Rodney Dangerfield is here," and you go, "We don't know, how do we use him?" It'd be hard to use him on Update. So then Jim had this idea, Jim Downey, where I would go, he would go, "I tell you, I got no respect," do a joke, and then I go, "That seems funny. Oh, Rodney, get any respect? What about your kids? And they must give you respect, You're doing good." My kids, they don't give me respect. Do a few more jokes, I go, "That seems hard to believe. What about," certainly, like if you went to a bar, like a bartender would give you respect, right? You go, "I tell you, dude." I go, like, "This is atrocious," But anyways, Rodney's like, "What the fuck?" He didn't understand any of it. He's like, "Why? Doesn't this motherfucker know I don't get no respect?" So, anyways, you have to do the show at 8:30, and then the dress rehearsal, and then at 11:30, So he had to get there real early, and he said, "Norm, I gotta talk to you." I was like, "What?" He says, "Why the fuck?" He goes, "I know how to do my jokes. Why can't I just leave and come back at midnight?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know, Rodney. Like, you have to do the dress rehearsal. They make us do the dress rehearsals." He goes, "I don't mind." He goes, "I don't mind fucking act. I've done it a million times." I go, "Yeah, I know. I don't know what to say." So then he said, "I tell you, we were all alone, and Rodney was like my hero and stuff." And he goes, "I tell you, kid, it's all waiting, He goes, "Just fucking waiting, just, He goes, "You do TV, you just sit in a room and you wait all the time, He goes, "The same with movies. You just sit in a trailer and you wait the whole fucking time." He goes, "That's no life, He goes, "Oh, all there is stand-up." He goes, "Oh, the rest of it's all shit, Movies are shit, TV's shit, He goes, always remember, kids, just stand up. So it's very like moving and everything. And then he goes, he pauses, and then he goes, stand up is shit. You know? And so then I was staring at him all alone in a room, and after he's told me everything in the world is shit. Well, that was Rodney, man. The heaviness. That's what I always say. Oh, the heaviness, Norm. The heaviness, you know.
How old? He would have been really old at that time.
Yeah, he, I guess the thing with Rodney is he didn't make it till he was like 50 or something, so he didn't care for that. You know, he didn't like all the other people getting the fruits of show business, which to him were just drugs and women. You know, he came from that era where it was like, broads, I tell you, booze, you know. So he didn't like that he had to wait till he was older to get that.
So okay, so you start working on Weekend Update, you and Downey. Tell me about what did you learn about writing from that experience? Like you guys were. Was it pretty much just the two of you at a certain point?
Yeah, me and Dan. Well, we decided like very early on. Like I was like, let's just. Because I was like, I don't like jokes that are clever. I was telling him, I said, I don't like innuendos, like are my least favorite types of jokes. I'd rather just say the thing, you know. And I was saying like, you know, they always make innuendos so it'll be palatable, so old ladies can like snicker at it. And I go, why not just say the thing outright, you know? And he was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he knew this band, The Clash, that he really liked. He was like, you mean like The Clash? I'm like, I don't know what that means. But you like just jokes, like stripped down jokes. So then he played The Clash for me. I go, oh, I understand. Yes, it's like that. Like I listened to Outlaw Country, so I understood it was the same kind of idea. It was just strip it down to its essence, use as few words as possible, and then just be preposterously blunt about things, rather than clever in any way.
Our top story tonight: the nation is still reeling from Thursday's bombshell announcement that Lisa Marie Presley has filed for divorce from Michael Jackson. According to friends, the two were never a good match. She's more of a stay-at-home type, and he's more of a homosexual pedophile.
So we decided to do that, and because we really wanted to do something different, because there were so many monologues, and then I also wanted to do a lot of non sequiturs and stuff also. So we very quickly had the idea of anti-pandering, you know, where the audience was sort of our enemy, you know, the studio audience, or at least not complicit in the whole thing, like they sometimes would be for the rest of the show. So I think, you know, Update suddenly became sort of like, didn't seem like the rest of the show, you know, it seemed like a thing within the show that wasn't like the rest of the show that you were watching, you know. So people either liked that or they disliked it. I don't know. And but that was the original. That was the origin of the kind of idea behind Update. You know, since then I've seen jokes that we sort of made up, because I was always like, let's think of new ways to say jokes that haven't been done before. Since then I've seen that done, like in mainstream, and nobody really seems to care anymore. But at the time, like, it was confrontational to the audience.
I was a kid, right? So I would have been like 10, 11.
Oh, goodness gracious.
But it was thrilling, right? Like, for me, it was like very thrilling.
Oh, that's cool.
Very visceral almost. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's cool. That's what we were going for. We were trying to like go over the studio audience's head and to the people at home, kind of. Because I was always saying to Downey, I like watching stuff like, especially Letterman, like, where it seems like me and him got it and nobody else did. You know what I mean? Like, kind of thing. Like I was like, I don't care if nobody's laughing, Dave. I like it, kind of idea.
And why do you think that you guys were allowed? Like, why do you think that you two were allowed to sort of have that kind of freedom and be so distinct from the rest of the show?
We sort of had the freedom because I was willing to walk away, because Jim Downey told me early on. He was like, as soon as I got Update, he goes, you got to be careful with Update, because he goes, I've known very funny people whom Update has shown to be unfunny, they seem unfunny, even though they aren't, and he said, so you got to be careful about that. So I was like, okay, well, I want to, since I'm alone here talking to the camera, doing jokes, I sort of don't want to take anybody's direction, because it's my life, it's my livelihood. It's me with my own name saying things. So I don't want anybody else's input on what I should say as a joke. It's completely different than a sketch or anything like that, I mean,
and Lorne trusted you. Anyways, he trusted you to do it.
Yeah, Lorne was good to us. He was. I don't know if he was ever, a really big fan of Update the way it was under Jim, not me. But he knew that. Like you were saying earlier, like even if he doesn't like something, he'll go with it. He knew that Update was gathering momentum at that time. It was certainly at least like a niche, and at some times in the show, it was the strongest thing in the show, So he couldn't ignore it, But he did not like not being in control of it. I know that.
Really, he told you that?
And the rest, no, he never told me. But the rest of the way it used to work on Update is everybody would throw in jokes on Saturday. They'd kind of write it on Saturday, and they'd all sit around a big table and write Update, while they ate. And and when I went there, I was like, well, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to start writing Update on Monday, and just write all day, every day. So we, cordoned ourselves off into one room and just did that and said, see you Saturday to the rest of the cast and crew. So the crew didn't take care, but I mean to the rest of the cast, which, I can see looking back, maybe they didn't like that so much.
Yeah. But you felt like, was there a moment on Weekend Update that you felt was sort of like, that you look back on as like, I'm really glad we did that. That's a thing that you're sort of really proud of?
I liked, we would do a thing where the punchline would be like, Michael Jackson is a homosexual pedophile, something like that. I liked that. I remember Lauren going like, you don't want Michael Jackson to sue you. And I said, oh yeah, that would be awesome. That would be the fucking coolest thing if Michael Jackson sued me. But I like that, I like just saying things like outright that would sort of get gasps, sometimes audible gasps I could hear from the audience. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's cool.
And then I guess like when did you sort of realize that it became a problem? Like and before you get fired, were you aware, and but you still continue to do your own thing? Like, what is it? Was it just that you decided, I don't care, I'm not going to change my style or whatever? Like what?
Yeah. Well, they told me in many different ways. Like I got word like fire Downey, and you can keep your job and stuff like that, which I would never do. And take it easy. Just everything doesn't have to be a shock, And I was like, almost nothing's a shock. Maybe we do one shock joke. Most of the you know, and I think maybe the problem was with Update was a lot of jokes would hit silence, you know, and I think maybe, you know, the West Coast people were like, hey, well, Leno, you know, has wall-to-wall laughs for 15 minutes every night, you know, and we can't muster, you know, enough jokes to kill for once a week, you know. So I think that's what they were thinking, which I understand that.
How did you get fired? Like, what was it actually like? What was the process of getting fired? What was it about? What happened?
It was very odd. It was like, you know, no one would tell me, you know. I go, am I fired or what? Well, we don't know, you know. It doesn't look great or something. And so I didn't want to just wait, you know, till Saturday to see if I was hosting. So,
Did you still write Weekend Update before, like, during that week?
yeah, I thought we were still the host. And then I was told to phone Don Ohlmeyer, who was the president of the network, which was really odd because we were talking about like he didn't even want to fire me from the show. He just Update, which was a 5-minute segment at midnight on a Saturday. So it's weird that I'm talking to the president of NBC. But yeah, I phoned him and I said, because this is what they told me. They said they liked me, but Ohlmeyer wanted me fired. So I said, yeah, I just want to make it clear. I just want to understand. So everybody here liked me, but you didn't. And he's like, is that what they're saying? He goes, I'll be the bad guy. I don't care. So he was intimating that other people wanted me gone too, you know. Which he had no reason to lie.
How did it feel? How did it feel? I mean, was it strange for you not to work on the show? Like, what was that first week like when you were not on the show?
Well, I couldn't do Update, but I was still on the show. So I said, I'm gonna do something that destroys on the show. So I came up with a Quentin Tarantino impression. So we did a thing with Quentin Tarantino and Burt Reynolds, which I do both of them. We did that in the pre-tape, and then that killed, and I ignored Update, you know, and the first week actually, and then I'm sorry, but then I wanted out. I was like, okay, that's enough. You can fire me now because it's too humiliating. You know, it's a big story in the paper that I'm not on Update. Now I have to be in sketches, and you know, it's all self-conscious for everyone. And sure enough, like I had to do one because he just wouldn't let me go. Don Ohlmeyer just would not let me leave the show with any dignity, you know. So I said, I just after that appeared in sketches like smoking and wearing my street clothes and never going to makeup and stuff like that.
And then what was the first? So you basically said, and then what was that first week when you didn't work on the show? What was that like?
I don't remember it, but I remember being depressed, like that I couldn't go in because, like you say, you know, the Monday you phone the host, and then Tuesday, you know, you have a whole fun routine, you know, which I could have reverted back to and just ignored Update, but I don't know, I felt like it was the perfect exit strategy, really.
What did you learn? What did you learn about comedy from Lorne? Did you feel you learned anything about comedy, or was it about learning what not to do, or what was it what do you think you learned?
Well, I did learn a lot from Lorne. I learned the biggest thing I learned from Lorne was that there's no money in, or there's no success in being what he called Michael O'Donoghue, like in being a comics comic. That's pointless because comics don't pay to see you, and that there's no shame in being a performer that's doing material that he feels, you shouldn't feel any material is beneath you. That's what I learned, but that's what I rejected. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I didn't learn that. But Lorne, he taught me like that you should never go after a private citizen and attack him with your comedy. He taught me that there's no gain in saying anything bad about a person, even if you don't like them. So he taught me things. He was kind of, people project him as a very cold person, but he's actually a very sweet human being that has more life lessons than comedy lessons, I'd say.
The smartest cat I ever knew at SNL, and a much revered figure there, is joining us for another segment. This is my former producer, longtime writer and contributor, Jim Downey. Jim, I had Norm on the show yesterday. I always thought Norm, from the first second I saw him, was just a flat-out misanthropic genius. I always gave him a wide berth as far as time schedules and that, because I just said, well, I'm going to grab Amadeus and tell him he has to be here to do busy work. You know what I mean? That isn't going to happen. So I think he's a genius. What was it like to work with him on Update?
Well, he is a genius and the most fearless performer. He likes people to laugh at his stuff. He enjoys that, but it's sort of one of like, half a dozen important aspects of what he does. Mm-hmm. So that if he really loves a joke or a bit, he will happily go out there and do it, whatever the response is. And there is if you want to hear a story,
I love me a Norm story.
One time we were in the office doing Update stuff, and there'd been a news item about there was going to be a newspaper for the homeless, and so we were thinking about doing some of that. So we started improvising. It was more of a scene, not something we could do on the segment, but it was like a tough kind of Perry White kind of editor going like, "You, Miller, I want 500 words on going to the bathroom in your pants. You, Immel, give me something. Give me a human interest thing on urine stain matter. You, was that kind of thing. Yeah. And like a lot of like photos, maybe some, a little human side, what are, pets, that kind of thing. And so nothing came of it, and I sort of forgot we had the conversation. And then the first meeting we have after the summer, Norm comes in and goes, hey, Downey, remember that, that thing we were talking about there with the, remember that thing with the newspaper for the homeless, that thing, the homeless newspaper? And I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, well, I was out in L.A. and I was asked to do this benefit, for the coalition to feed the homeless or something, And, and I'm going, no. And he goes, yeah, I did that bit, They hated it. Hated it.
All right, you tell me now. That's the Andy Kaufman part of the joke, or is he actually surprised that they hated it? That's what I can't quite figure with Lorne.
I know.
Jimmy calls in here periodically and says that he has bought a puppet and he wants to work material out on the show. And I'll say, well, tell me about the puppet. And it's an old man puppet who's a Holocaust denier. And it's obviously just Norm sitting at home talking as Norm. He makes no pretension to a puppet voice.
I know.
And I think he's Andy. I don't know. I view a lot of Andy Kaufman in there. It's just
well, he also would like to, one of the things that he would really enjoy just getting into a character, and then you could not get him out of it. Like he liked doing old man stuff,
yes,
like being an old geezer and complaining about aches and pains and stuff like that. And then you go, okay, Norm, now seriously, now we actually have to talk about it. He'd start doing stuff about rheumatism and things like that, and you just had to plead with him to just stop. But he was on his own kind of
Yeah.
set of rhythms.
The speed with which he would take his sport coat off at the end of his Letterman impression always I would watch the thing just to watch, because Letterman's so ill at ease with show business, always makes this conscious show of getting rid of the sport coat at the end of the show. And when Norm picked up on that and did that as impression, God, I fell out. Hey, I have to ask you about the real Andy Kaufman real quickly. What were you hip to him before he comes in, or what's
well,
that? Well,
I had not. He had been on a couple of times the first season, and I had missed most of the first season, so I didn't really get to meet him until year 2. But he, there was one time I was flying back from visiting my family in the Midwest, and I arrive at Newark airport, okay, at like midnight because the flight was delayed, and I don't know why, but in those days I guess it was too cheap or something, but I decided to take the bus into the Port Authority, and I get on the bus, and there's a solitary figure in the back in a brown hoodie, and it was Andy Kaufman. So we went back to that was where we sort of bonded on that bus trip from Newark Airport. So he used to come by the office and ask if anyone wanted to go see kung fu movies in Times Square. That was when Times Square had virtually nothing but kung fu movies.
Right.
And so I went a couple times with Mr. Kaufman, and he was like just a fascinating person to be around. He quite he loved those movies and could discuss them like a completely normal person. But when he wanted to get into his thing, he was as unshakable as Norm,
Yeah. Folks, I know that SNL over the last 35 years has become the cultural place where young people hang their hat. And if it does you any good in a world where people seem to get misappropriated power or misappropriated wealth, to know that the finest man I ever met there was right at the center of it for over 3 decades should do all our hearts well. Jimbo, I love you.
Love you right back.
All right. We'll talk at you down the road. That is the great Jim Downey.
Here's a Norm Macdonald story. We were filming a sketch. Now, when we first got Saturday Night Live, Norm Macdonald sat us all down, the cast, and he goes, Listen, I'm the update guy, okay? Now, if I want to do a sketch, I'm like the star, and I don't want it, but I'm getting it on. Don't write any of your sketches and put me in them. Don't put me in any of your gay sketches. That's what he said. He goes, but be prepared. If I'm doing a sketch, it's getting on. All right. 2 years later, he doesn't do any sketches. He just does the update. Pamela Anderson comes on. Now, whenever a beautiful woman would come on, Chris Kattan would always write a sketch where he gets to make out with the girl. And he'd always over-flirt with her, like, oh my God, you're so sexy, you're hot, I want to sex you up, think you're cute, I want to go on a date, you single, I want to hot, you're sexy. Which was weird, because I always swore that he lived in the closet. Not that I care. No, I'm just saying, I always, you're like, well, you sure? You can tell me if you want, because he was very... he's very flamboyant, and he would always bring up gay in conversation, which was, to me, weird. It's like, you're like, oh my God, I was watching football, and I don't know, it just started making me feel gay. You ever feel that way? No. Not really. But if it makes you, all right. And I took that as a hint, because... like a pot smoker will hang out with a group, and they'll go, and there's always one that drops the little hint to test the crowd. Like, yeah, so if we go out tonight, it'd be weird. I don't really smoke pot, but, maybe tonight if someone's got nothing. But I would never do that, because it's weird, it's drugs and stuff. But you automatically know, like, oh, okay, he's looking for, I'll talk to you when no one's around. So I didn't know if Kattan was that guy. I'm like, oh my God, because he'd say it a lot. He'd be like, oh my God, I was on an airplane. I don't know, I just felt gay. Not me, but, whatever, knock it out. So, Pamela Anderson, she's on the show. And she goes on, and we're getting ready to do a sketch. Now, when we read a sketch, we try it out on Wednesday. Wednesday, you want to read it, sell it, and try to get it to be picked up to work on for the week. Now, Norm Macdonald is playing the guy from the Twilight Zone. I don't remember his name, but the sketch is like, imagine, if you will, another place in time. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. So, but Norm, this is how he reads the sketch. He goes, hey, imagine, if you will, another place in time. Twilight Zone, yeah, pig faces. Well, they picked the sketch up, and they put me, Catan, and Sherry O'Terry in the sketch, okay? Now, it's Saturday. It's Saturday, the day of the show. We go on the floor, and if Catan wasn't starring in a sketch, he'd start nitpicking at other cast members. And he started busting on Norm. He's like, oh my God, Norm, Jesus. You don't even sound like the guy. You're not gonna get this. It's not gonna get picked up. Why are you acting that way? I mean, sound like the guy. Pamela, you're so hot. You're so sexy. Tommy Lee, I'm bigger than Tommy Lee. Me and you can hang out with suck face. God, Norm, you're awful. Sound like him. And the whole time I'm looking at Norm like, you're not gonna do anything? I've seen you be so rude. You're not gonna say something to Catan? You're gonna let him pick on you? And he's just looking at us like, yeah. Nothing happens. Now's the dress show. On Saturday Night Live, there's a live show and there's a dress show. The dress show, they film the whole show. God forbid something happens, they have a show in the can. But also, they do a lot of sketches because you're trying to get on. Sketches are gonna get cut, and then you only see the live version. So we're working our ass off for the dress show. Packed crowd, ready to go. 1 minute for the Twilight Zone. Norm Macdonald, Chris Catan, Jim Brewer, Sherry O'Terry to the floor. We get on the floor. As a crowd, our mics are on. Swear to God, Catan's going, God, Norm, where'd you hear this guy? You sound terrible. I can do impression better. Did you work on it? Pamela, you're so hot. I'm gonna suck face and rub up against you, and me and you are gonna hang out and suck your face. You go in the party, we're gonna hump and hang out and dry hump your leg at the party. 30 seconds. God, Norm, you're never gonna get this. God, try. Aren't you guys concerned? We're not gonna get on the air. 10 seconds. I'm gonna feel you and I'll rub up against your butt and hot and... Go! Norm Macdonald. Hey, imagine, if you will, another place in time, and that's the thing. And I went, I can't believe this is where you want to try to knock it out. And he just let it go like that. Now, when the show's over, you walk into Lorne Michaels' room. And when you go in there, there's a billboard. And it shows you what sketches are on. And when we walk in, go ahead, I'll wait for you. When we walk in, take your time, it's over there. And when we first walk in, it says the Twilight Zone sketch. I'm like, wow, how did that make it? So here we are, live show, monologue. Pamela Anderson comes out, first sketch of the night. 1 minute for kickoff of the show. Jim Brewer, Sherry O'Terry, Chris Catan, Will Ferrell, not Will Ferrell, Norm Macdonald, all this stuff. So we get there, live show, 1 minute to live on the air. Catan starts. God, Norm, you're like terrible. We got 1 minute. You're gonna sound terrible on national television. Don't you care? Oh my God, you don't even care? Don't you feel gay? God, what's wrong with you? And I can't believe, I'm getting mad that he's trying to throw Norm off his game. He's live TV. And then, oh my God, Pamela, you go to the party, you're hot, I'm gonna sex you up. 30 seconds. God, Norm, wait till you hear him. It's terrible. Why don't you stay at the update desk? 20 seconds. Pamela, you're so hot. 15 seconds. Norm had a cigarette, puts it out. 10 seconds. Hey, Catan. By the way, if everyone didn't know, Catan's gay, but he doesn't tell anyone he's gay. And that's why he's this angry little bitch, and he just takes it out on everyone, and he tries to hit on Pamela Anderson, who you know would never be with you. She went timely late. 5 seconds! So why don't you just come out of the closet and admit you're gay and you wouldn't live a lie, you little bitch? We're on! Imagine if you will. Another place and time. But, so, if you ever look for that sketch later on YouTube or something, look Pamela Anderson and look for the Twilight Zone sketch. And when you watch it, just watch me now that you know that story. Because all you're gonna see is the back of me and my shoulders doing this the whole sketch. And then Catan next to me going,
Ladies and gentlemen, Norman MacDonald.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're very kind. You know, in the, what's that? Oh, yeah, no. No, you're absolutely right. That is my name. You know, when the people here asked me to do the show, you know, I gotta say, I felt kind of weird, you know. I don't know if you remember this, but I used to actually be on this show, you know. I used to do the weekend update news routine. You remember that? And, yeah. That's where I did the make-believe news jokes, you know. That was me, right? So then, a year and a half ago, right, I had a sort of a disagreement with the management at the NBC. I wanted to keep my job, right? And they felt the exact opposite. So you see, they fired me because they said that I wasn't funny, you know? Now with most jobs, I could have had a hell of a lawsuit on my hands for that, but see, this is a comedy show. So they got me, you know, you don't want. But now, this is the weird part, right? It's only a year and a half later, and now they asked me to host the show. So I wondered, I go, hey, wait a second here. Hey! I go, how did I go in a year and a half from being not funny enough to be even allowed in the building to being so funny that I'm now hosting the show? How did I suddenly get so damn funny? It was inexplicable to me, because a year and a half, let's face it, is not enough time for a dude to learn how to be funny. Then it occurred to me, I haven't gotten funnier. The show has gotten really bad. So yeah, I'm funny compared to, you know, well, you'll see later. But okay, so let's recap. The bad news is, I'm still not funny. The good news is, the show blows. All right, folks, we got a bad show for you tonight. Dr. Dre, Snoop Doggy Dogg, and Eminem are here.